Hi, I want to talk with you a little bit about this particular essay assignment. I am really excited about this topic. It's vital that we develop a better understanding of issues around fake news, and so I'm hopeful that that works for you as you explore, learn more, and take a position about an issue in fake news. So let's take a just quick look here for a few minutes at the assignment sheet. So you will see here there are options. Okay, so you choose one of these options. It's really important that you not mix this all up because your essay won't have the focus that it needs if you address multiple issues in a short assignment. So you're going to write a 3 to 5 page essay, and you're going to, this is a thesis driven assignment. So there will be work about what it means to have a thesis, and you will be doing you'll get some materials about thesis statements. I've also called them position statements. So you're taking a position on an issue. And then once you have clearly stated your position, you support and defend your position. So the other thing about this assignment is that English 102, it is time for us in English 102 to begin thinking in terms of counter arguments. So there will be work. You'll have specific materials to examine and some work to do about counter argument. But the counter argument involves taking seriously an opposing position. So you have your position statement, and you, in your essay, at some point, not the whole essay by any means, but at some point you address a opposing point of view, an opposing position. So just wanted to put that out, that is part of this assignment. All right. So the first option is to examine the presence of fake news, in our culture, in our media, as a potential danger to our democracy. Okay. We have been thinking already about the role of journalism in a democracy. And so what happens when that journalism becomes, at times anyway, replaced with fake news, false information, etc. Okay? So in this one, you would actually begin first to do some work to define what you're presenting here as fake news, and then you would support your claim about the potential danger to democracy. Is it a danger? Why? What causes that? Or why not, with specific reasons? Okay. I want to say at this point, the one thing I'd caution you about, this happens sometimes of the nature of certain assignments, is that sometimes people are tempted to dismiss the issue because it's always been around, okay? When in fact that's not the case to begin with, okay? Not that we've not had our current media environment around all the time. So for instance, dismissing this as a concern at all is not worth your time to write, and it's definitely not worth the reader's time to examine, right? So don't be tempted to begin going down that road. All right, enough said. Option 2. Okay. Examine what happens when factual news reports are dismissed as fake news. So they're called fake news, right? There's an actual report, something is presented, and it's, the journalist has followed best practices, followed codes of ethics, and lo and behold, someone claims, oh, that's just fake news. So what happens when that occurs? And perhaps even sometimes an entire news organization might be labeled as fake news. Okay. Some of you may immediately think of instances, some really high profile instances in which this has happened. Okay. And some of you may not have seen this happen, but some of you may immediately go to some kind of notorious examples of that. So you're going to write, again, a thesis-driven essay taking a position about this issue, right? Does that undermine or threaten the role of journalism? And if so, what does that do? Does that then present a threat to democracy? All right, perhaps is a good line of questioning. Now, you're not going to imagine things. You're going to need to find actual cases when this has happened. Googling some of it to begin with might get you some immediate examples, okay? Then I did actually give you a link here that you might think about. It's an opinion piece, but as you're reading and learning, opinion journalism is entirely valid. Traditional opinion journalism relies on facts. It provides interpretation, but it relies on facts. It is not less important because it has an opinion that is presented. Okay. It is just usually legitimate news organizations clearly mark those articles, if they're in print, as opinion pieces, and legitimate news broadcasts would somehow mark a commentator's remarks as commentary rather than straight news reporting. Okay. Option 3. Okay, I'll go straight to this bottom point here. This is an option only if immediately you are familiar with this phenomenon. If you're not familiar with it, there just isn't time in what we're doing here for you to get up to speed and understand the complexity of this phenomenon. But in this option, you would examine the role of satirical items that resemble the format of news reports, but make outrageously false, and usually for the purpose of humor that makes a point. Okay, so The Onion, the Borowitz report, that's published in the New Yorker. So what's the role of those in today's fake news environment? So my question, I guess, would be, does the presence of it raise the level of awareness about false reports? Or it could be argued that it might contribute to cynicism, so attitudes that don't help audiences develop more awareness. Okay. Now, a little similar to this, but a little bit different would be something like The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, which is resembling a news broadcast. Okay. So they've got this format, but then they're doing, it's on Comedy Central, right? It's overtly satire and comedy. Or Last Week Tonight, which is a really interesting kind of hybrid in a sense, where it's on HBO, and it does a lot of the, satire, which points to the absurdity of certain events, claims, etc. But it also, John Oliver has an entire team of investigative journalists, and they will do long segments on specific issues. So you maybe, if you're familiar with those and have kind of been interested in that in the past, you might enjoy this option to write, okay? Now, whatever option you use, rely on specific examples of fake news items that you select to help you explore an issue and make a claim. I'm thinking what we might do is do a group brainstorming and collect a bunch of items of fake news so that you can, sort of begin to see some options that you might have. You need a total of 4 minimum, and you may have more, but minimum 4 sources. And you're going to need both primary sources, so that is the actual report You could compare a fake news and a actual news report. Those would both be primary sources. And then secondary sources, those are the essays that help you understand and help you evaluate the reports that you're examining. Now, you were given a lot of things to read already in this module. Most all of those are secondary sources, okay? And again, you can't make a claim about fake news, but only have one example. That's just not logical, right? Because it could just be an isolated example, and you'll need to demonstrate something in much more than one isolated case, okay? So your purpose is to clearly explain and support your thesis about fake news in the context of what others have said about the issue. What I mean by that, that's the secondary sources. What have other people said? So early on in the essay, a clear, debatable thesis statement, provide detailed, relevant support for your claim, the counter-argument, and you'll get materials on the counter-argument, but here's just a couple of thoughts on the counter-argument. The point about writing in a counter-argument to your essay, there are a couple of things that it does. It presents you as a serious person. It presents you as an informed person. You're informed about opposing point of view, and you can take them seriously and evaluate them. So you want to do a couple of things with your opposing argument. First, you want to give credit for anything that's actually valid. So you're opposing the counter-argument, the opposing point of view, may make some really good points. So you want to concede those points. But you also want to present a rebuttal, right? You want to say why that counter-argument is weaker than your position, right? So a lot of times the rhetorical move, and I'm going to give you guys some materials for that, but the rhetorical move that looks like, you know, while John Smith presents, you know, accurate information about X, he has failed to acknowledge that da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so you're giving credit where credit's due, but then you're showing the weakness of that counter-argument. Okay, the audience is a general, educated reader not in this class. So do not from the get-go assume that they understand why this essay is appearing in the world, right? Your job is to present a general, educated reader, easing them into this topic. Then organization, and a writer's memo is a typical part of this. So just to, you know, some kind of nuts and bolts here, I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk with you about this assignment. I am terrifically excited about this. I hope that you are too. This matters. This is worth your time to consider, and I look forward to what you do with this. Thanks.